Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the EFL Grand Finals. We have Apollo on the government. On the opposition, we have Team Kratia. Under the motion that this House believes that the state should selectively support arts and culture that portray national identity, now I'd like to invite the Prime Minister to the podium.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Today, we are debating under the motion that this House believes that the state should selectively support art and culture that portray national identity. As a Prime Minister from the government side, I'd like to define the motion first. The selectively support means the support only arts and culture that have identity. And the arts and culture that have identity means like, for example, 씨름, taekwondo, and hanbok in Korea, and things like sumo or animation industry within Japan. There are three reasons why we strongly agree with this motion. First is strengthening the selectively support the national competitive power, and second is protection of tradition, and third is getting economical benefits. As a first speaker myself, we'll be talking about the two things, which is the strengthening national competitive power and the protection of tradition. Now let's elaborate on my first argument, which is the selectively supporting improves national competitive power. Our government side don't expect only art and culture that have portray national identity to develop we are not saying that the only, but however, we are expect that by selectively support the art and culture that has portrayed the national identity, we can expect the benefits because we are strongly agree with this topic. Let's elaborate. As government supports the arts and culture to be a representative of individual countries, nations, the contents of the arts and culture to be culturally developed, and it takes very important role in the world by representing its nations. Once the arts and culture have strong power and be introduced to other countries, it can contribute to improve the image of its nations. That means the tradition that is supported by government will inform about each nation's culture, and even it is the good chance to advertise about their own nations and country. So it'll contribute to the political status, even economical status, as it forms the good image in the world by selectively support. For example of Korea. The performance of taekwondo, nanta, are put on the stage, and as foreigners are accustomed of Korean culture, and also the kimchi, bulgogi, bibimbap introduced to foreign countries, people all over the world has chance to get the information about Korea. Even if we cannot see the concrete effect because we cannot see the emotional effect among people all over the world, however, it is clear that as other nations are aware of the nations, aware of the nations who represent the nations by supporting the arts and culture, it would be easy to establish the good image of its nations. Now let's elaborate on my second argument, which is the selectively supporting through arts and culture protects tradition. as you already know the fact that traditions are the root of each nation. Following the trace of civilization, when a nation made a new empire, then their distinctive culture are developed gradually. So the own culture has to be protected. And the culture that have a lot of instinctive national identity is the tradition. So we are focusing on the protection of the tradition. That is why we're focusing on the tradition.
Point of information, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
In this globalized society, isn't it necessary to accept other countries' culture and blend with our own culture?
Yes, that's right. However, by accepting the foreign cultures, there are a lot of most of the country are in danger of the disappearing of their own culture. Their own culture has a root. However, what happened if the own culture disappeared because of the other foreign culture? That is the most important thing is the protection of own nation's identity, the own nation culture, and the next step. No, ma'am. The next step should be the accepting the other foreign nations, other foreign culture. So it is important to protect. And the situation in this today, most of the countries are in danger of disappearing of their own culture. They have to protect by selectively supporting the culture, the tradition. So back to Ms. Rich. And support is the best way to protect, as the support support is the best protection, like I said. Like I said, most of the countries are now in the global world, and as the fact, they are getting others' culture into their nations. It is natural inflow of other culture in art. However, the point that we have to focus in this case is that some few culture, for example, the culture of USA or Europe, are occupying all the other nations. So a lot of all the countries are in danger of disappearing on their nation, on their culture. For example, Mongolians are the victim of the overflow of other culture, which was occupied the Chinese culture. This is the best example. Also, best example. Like this, because of the overflow of the other Western culture, its nations need to protect their own culture. As a Prime Minister, we have 3 reasons why we strongly agree with this motion, and I explained about 2 things, which is the selectively supporting can strengthen national competitive power by making good image in the world. And second was protection of tradition. As the almost countries are in danger of disappearing their own culture, they have to protect their culture by selectively support art and culture that portray national identity. For these 3 reasons, and I explained in 2, and our Deputy Prime Minister will explain about the last one. And for these 3 reasons, we strongly agree with this motion. Thank you.
I thank the Prime Minister, and now I'd like to invite the Leader of the Opposition to the podium. Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you to the Mr. and Ms. adjudicators. This is the Leader of Opposition who strongly believes that this motion fails to stand for following 3 reasons. But before I give you the guide map of our team's points, I'd first like to give some rebuttals to their points because their mind in this globalized society is too conservative, and their point fails because when this policy is enacted, there will actually be a damage into our culture. And I'd like to further develop on that point. They mentioned that the protection is the only way to keeping our culture. But what we believe is that in this globalized society, when we are just selectively supporting our own culture, thus it will not bring any enhancement. The Prime Minister gave us the example. She gave us the example, and also my second rebuttal to her would be that when she gave the example of Mongol and the China, she said that there is a possibility of losing the identity of our nation. However, what the opposition is strongly stating to you is that yes, there is a possibility. So we should be aware of it when two or more cultures meet and they sort of cooperate. But just not letting the diversity happen, according to the Prime Minister, is too conservative. And as I mentioned before, this is not the ideal attitude that should be coming from the government in the globalized society. And now I'd like to further move on to my points. And there are mainly 3 points that we're going to prove in this throughout today's debate. First, blending culture is what we need for the enhancement and for the very good of our culture. And second, that the blending culture can actually work as an economical foundation and in the globalized society. And last of all, that when this policy is enacted, a lot of poor artists or a lot of people who are engaged in the Korean culture are likely to change their artistic mind, because when we just give selective support, they're likely change their mind in order to get this support. And the first 2 points will be mainly explained by the leader opposition, and the last point will be furtherly developed by the deputy leader of opposition. Ladies and gentlemen, what have I told you just now? That culture blending is what we need in a globalized society. For what? For the better good of our culture. Now, let me explain how this works by explaining to you the status quo. As I keep emphasizing, and will be emphasized throughout this debate by the opposition, is that now it is a globalized world. The reason I'm having an English debate at this moment, because it's globalized society, and that we have to intake other cultures.
Points, ma'am.
No, thank you. And so in order for the development of the culture, we cannot only insist on our culture, but we have to take in other factors. Therefore, we can come to the conclusion that with the good side of other culture and with the good side of ours, we can make us improvements. Let me put it in a more clear way. If we selectively support the arts and culture that only portray the national identity, yes, ma'am?
We're blending with other foreign culture, then what will it do if your own cultures disappear then?
As I mentioned before, yes, there is a possibility, but that is something that we should be aware of. But that does not enoughly explain why we should be afraid of mixing our culture, because that is so conservative and protective attitude that is not fit for the globalized society. Now, moving on, as I mentioned before, to put it in a short form, if we enact this policy, we're just the frogs in the wells who are only capable of thinking about themselves and who are only capable of enacting or developing the culture world in our society. This means that we are not able to see the bigger world. Now, moving on to my second point. The opposition have gave you the reason why opposition have given you the reason why today's motion doesn't stand. And the second reason was that blending culture can work as the economical foundation in the globalized society. Using the examples that were given from the Prime Minister, she said that there were examples were sedum and the kimchi. But ladies and gentlemen, sedum and kimchi are made for Korean people. It has Korean spirit. So it might not be very suitable for the other foreigners to take in. And that is why we have to, in order to export our art, in order to export our culture, we keep the identity of ours, but we get the things from other cultures, so it can be more approachable, more apprehended by them. To further develop, if we just give out the spicy kimchi, they're going to be very, they're going to be very afraid or maybe not very likable towards the kimchi. And that is why we have to blend the culture. We opposition believe is that, what we believe is that the diversity is what we need in our society. Because different from maths and English we learn in schools, the arts and culture are always changing. But if we selectively focus on one kind of culture, the diversity for improvement of the culture is damaged. Globalization, in the globalization society, we cannot just force our culture because we are all different and have different thoughts and likes. When we are different, how can you force others to like only ours? So what we believe is that the blending of culture is most ideal for the globalization. So ladies and gentlemen, what have I told you today? The reason why today's motion cannot stand is because in a globalized society, the blending of our culture is not only good for us, but also good is not only good for the enhancement of our culture, but it's only good because it can build up the economical foundation of our culture. Ladies and gentlemen, please, I urge you to go against this motion for the following reasons. Thank you.
Okay, I thank the leader of the opposition. Now I'd like to invite the second speaker from the government side.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Today we are debating under the motion that this House believes that the state should selectively support art and culture that portray national identity. As the Deputy Prime Minister of the government team, I would like to first rebut what the opposition team has said and go on to my third argument, which is economical benefit. First, I'd like to clear one point, the term subsidize. The term subsidize does not mean that we should ban another culture or we should ban another culture, because the subsidize means something to support, and it goes with the word protection. By doing subsidize, we can protect our own culture, but that does not mean that the protection of other cultures does not really mean that banning other cultures. However, they are confusing the term subsidize. Therefore, this is why they keep saying that it could lead to, in a globalized society, that does not fit. And I would like to rebut their ideas specifically. First, the leader of opposition has made a rebuttal what the Prime Minister said, and she said that if we selectively support art and culture that portray the national identity, it cannot bring to an enhancement of our culture. However, ladies and gentlemen, today's focus is not on enhancement, it is on protection, ladies and gentlemen. Protection means to save something from weakness, because in case of the Korea, the culture of West, like blue jeans or McDonald's, the fast foods are interrupting our society. Therefore, our own clothes like hanbok and our own food is losing their place. Therefore, we are doing this the government should subsidize arts and cultures that portray national identities to protect those disappearing their own cultures, not to enhance our cultures, because the enhance means that we are not claiming that our culture is superior to the other cultures, but what we are claiming is that we should protect those cultures from disappearing.
Point of information, sir.
Yes, ma'am.
But as you are claiming, if we keep too much emphasis on the protection, wouldn't it be a closed mind would be created about our art and culture?
I cannot absolutely understand what the speaker says.
So
what I'm going to say is the difference of enhancement and the protection. The term subsidize means something to protect. We are not claiming that our culture should be superior to the other cultures, but we are just saying that by subsidizing our cultures, we should protect those cultures from disappearing. And the leader of opposition says 2 points. First, the enhancement of our culture, and I'd like to first rebut to the first argument that the leader of opposition has said. First, they talk about enhancement, but however, as I have already mentioned, that does not come to the means than subsidize, and their arguments fails to today's motion. And second, they told about the kimchi and serum does not meet to the foreign countries. However, this is why subsidize is needed to support subsidize is needed. Ladies and gentlemen, by doing this subsidize, we could change those kimchis and serums to be adaptable to the foreign countries. And the example of kimchi will be done on my argument. And now I would like to go on to my third argument, which is economical benefit. Ladies and gentlemen, if the state should support arts and culture that portray national identity, there could be a lot of economical benefits to the nations. First, the tourism, and the second, the exportation. And I would like to go on to my first argument with, I would like to take an example of tourism. In Brazil, every year from the late February to the early March, there exists Rio Samba Carnival, which is supported by the national government. However, to participate in this tourism, in this carnival, every year 7 million visitors visit Brazil. And think about the money they spend on the hotels of Brazil and the food of Brazil. It will be an enormous money, and therefore it could support the economical situation of the country. And second, I would like to talk about the exportation. As the Prime Minister have mentioned, if the state supports art and culture that portray national identity, we can have competitiveness in the products could be competitive enough. Therefore, I'd like to take an example of kimchi again. By the support of the nation, the government has made a documentary of 13 films, which is called Kimchi Chronicles, and this documentary was broadcasted to the United States. And after this documentary was broadcasted to the United States, the demand of kimchi has highly increased to the United States. That was because of the support of the government. And as you can see in this example, the exploitation of the national support of art and culture that portray if the government supports art and culture that portray national identity, the government exportation will increase and therefore lead to the economical benefits of the nation. And I'd like to sum up what I have said and end my speech. First, I have mentioned about the term I have mentioned about the term subsidy and which is support, and they are contradicting the two terms about protection and enhancement. Ladies and gentlemen, again I say that we claim that the government should support art and culture that portray national identity because the art and culture of the nation is disappearing. We are not saying that we should enhance them, but we should protect them from the flow of foreign cultures. And ladies and gentlemen, because of these reasons, our house strongly believes that the state should selectively support art and culture that portray national identity. Thank you.
I thank the Deputy Prime Minister, and now I'd like to invite the Deputy Leader of the Opposition to the podium.
Now, ladies and gentlemen, have you ever been to a fusion restaurant or seen a fusion music? For example, like arirang fusions with other Western music. If you have same experience, I believe that the opposition and their audiences would agree that there is a certain kind of benefits that not giving equal support to arts and culture has certain benefits into our society. Hello, ladies and gentlemen. I am the Deputy Leader of Opposition, and we strongly object to the motion that this House believes that the state should selectively support arts and culture that portrays their national identity. Today, as the Deputy Leader of Opposition, I am debating under the team stance that in this globalized society, it is both inevitable and beneficial to blend different cultures. Before moving on to my own constructive argument, I would first include a few reputations on the opposition side. My first reputation is that they have mentioned about the national competitive power. They have argued, ladies and gentlemen, that giving selective support to arts and culture that portrays national identity will give national competitive power into our country. However, ladies and gentlemen, what our government believes is that giving equal chances to arts and cultures, not only the arts and culture that portrays our national identity, but also the ones that does not portray our national identity, would be beneficial, would give a chance of development in our country. We the opposition strongly believe in the fact that there can be a positive blend of cultures, like I've mentioned, the fusion arirang and fusion music. We believe in that fact.
Points, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Are you ignoring the fact that fusion is based on each individual's culture? And what if the case is that the individual culture all disappear? Then do you think it is possible the fusion can happen?
No, I don't believe in the fact that the fusion affects. Of course, fusion affects the national identity of certain arts and culture. However, that doesn't mean that those fusion would bring a negative outcome. That harms national identity. What the basic claim of our opposition is that those fusion can be acted in a way that also benefits our country's culture by giving them more competitive power. And we believe in the fact that giving equal chances and equal chances for competition for both of the arts and cultures would be beneficial to our country. And second reputation is that they have mentioned the difference between banning and supporting. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, we clearly know the difference between banning and supporting. However, if the start line for the competition is not equal, can we call that a competition? And because the claim of the opposition is that competition between cultures would bring a positive outcome into our society, because that fact is one reason our opposition believes that there should not be selective support in those competition or in the process of competition. And we believe that equal competition is the key to the diversity, key to the positive diversity in our country. No, thank you, ma'am. We believe that this point does not stand. And thirdly, they have mentioned hanbok and taekwondo, and here on this point, we the opposition questions the necessity of this policy. Yes, like they have mentioned taekwondo and hanbok as the powerful culture that represents our country. Like they have already admitted themselves. Like we already have taekwondo hanbok kimchi, which represents our country and which strongly represents our country. And we believe that this is the reason why the selective support for our culture, for our national identity is not necessary in our society. Moving on to my own constructive argument. My main point is that giving selective support to arts and culture that portrays national identity significantly harms the diversity of arts in Korea. The current status quo of the diversity of arts in Korea is that we have great number of artists in Korea and who moves by their own motivation toward art. There are some artists who shows patriotism to our country, who reflects national identity into their arts, while there are some artists doesn't. And this status quo, ladies and gentlemen, is the reason why there should not be selective support given to the arts and culture that portrays national identity. If this policy by the government is enacted into our real society, then there should be a significant harm to the diversity of arts because, like they say, it is selectively supported. If artists themselves, this selective support would allow artists to neglect their own faith and their own motivation and their own point of view toward arts, which decide the diversity of arts itself, then there should be a significant harm to the diversity of artists. Diversity of the artists point of view, artist motivation, and which moves on the diversity of art itself. The artists, like I've already mentioned, the artists would try to adjust their motivation into the manner that portrays national identity in order to get selective support from the government, so that their art products would gain certain competitive power over the art objects that does not portray. And because of this fact, we believe that enacting the enactment of this policy would not stand. And as the deputy leader of opposition, I would strongly want to emphasize the fact that the question and the core of this debate is not about supporting, but selective support, which comes to my point that it affects the diversity of arts, which is very important in our country. So with the support of these reasons, I strongly believe that there should not be selective support to arts and cultures that portrays national identity. Thank you for listening.
I thank the Deputy Leader of the Opposition. Now I'd like to invite the Government Whip to the podium.
Good evening, fellow Good evening, honorable adjudicators and fellow debaters. This is the whip of the government side. And today we are debating under the motion that the state should selectively support arts and culture that portray national identity. And our team stance is that there should be selective supporting of the government for arts and culture that portray national identity. And as a whip speaker of the government side, I mainly found three clashes. First, efficiency. Second, validity of alternative. And the last, possibility. And I'd like to move on to my first clash, which is the efficiency. The leader of opposition have mentioned that protection on one's own culture is a conservative thought in globalized society in 21st century. But selective supporting, this person would like to point out that selective supporting can be rather adaptive to this, can be a rather efficient mean of protecting the culture that portray the national identity in this globalized society. Because like our Prime Minister have pointed out, there are increasing possibility of getting completely controlled by the outer culture coming from the foreign world. And our team strongly insists that we cannot completely overlook the danger of outer culture in globalized society. And just hope that our culture would be improved through mixing with other culture. And this person would like to point out, in this globalized society, the danger of the control of getting occupied by the outer culture is even more bigger. And thus, rather than just accepting the outer culture, we should prioritize the protection of our own culture. With no previous reason, I'd like to move on to my second clash, which is the validity of the alternatives. The leader of opposition kept mentioning, the leader of opposition and deputy leader of opposition kept mentioning about the alternative, which is that by accepting foreign factor in our culture, then the acceptance of foreign culture can contribute to the protection of enhancement of our own culture, and gave possible dangers regarding the protection of our own culture. But I'd like to point out that protecting over our culture, like our Deputy Prime Minister mentioned, aims to enable our culture to overcome weaknesses that are in the status quo, and it is just the protection is to enable the the weaknesses that are happening now, and does not mean that we should just focus on the protection and make a closed society, not accepting the outer culture completely. And we do not believe that ladies and gentlemen, we do not believe that protecting our own culture that portray the national identity will ban foreign cultures from getting in our own country and lead to the enhancement of our own culture. It just means that the protection aims for giving the opportunity of our culture to overcome their weaknesses. Not making some kind of closed society that just ban other culture to come into our own culture. This person would like to point out that the overflow of our other culture is a natural phenomenon, and we accept the fact that there should be an acceptance. But this person would like to urge that the opposition side misunderstood the true meaning of protection we are insisting. And clarifying this point, I'd like to move on to my third clash, which is the possibility. The Deputy Prime Minister mentioned about the fusion culture and blending, which means the blending of blending between the two cultures. And this person found some problematic points regarding this fusion culture. Like our Prime Minister have given on her POIs, fusion is based on our own culture. And if our own culture becomes weak due to the effect of outer culture in globalized society, there wouldn't be a successful...
POI, sir.
Yes, ma'am.
You mentioned that fusion is not beneficial into our society. However, because of the existence of fusion, don't you believe in the fact that our national identity itself will be more known to the public and more known to the global world?
Again, this clash is about the possibility and the fusion culture. The Deputy Prime Minister have mentioned has some partial success. But if we are assuming that if the own culture is weak, and if our own culture is weak, we cannot achieve true and effective fusion of culture. And even though there are some kind of success in fusion of the culture, in most cases, our team like to address that if our own culture becomes weak because of the overflow of outer culture from foreign world, we cannot achieve true and effective fusion of culture. And thus, we should prioritize, before thinking about the fusion of our culture, blending foreign factors into our culture, we should prioritize protecting our culture and look for bigger benefits in the long term. Because protection can guarantee the further growth of our own culture, which will also guarantee the further success of our own culture when it is blended with foreign factor in the future. From these three clashes that I've mentioned, first, efficiency; second, validity of alternatives; third, possibility. This person is confident that our team take this debate home. Thank you.
Thank the government whip. Now I'd like to invite the whip speaker from the opposition side.
Thank you, honorable adjudicators and fellow debaters. This is the opposition whip in the podium. Today, we have been debating under this motion that this House, the government, should selectively support arts and culture that portray national identity. And as the whip speaker of the opposition, I was able to find mainly two clashes regarding today's debate. First, the cultural matters, and second, the economical matters of this issue. First, let me start from the cultural factors. Our team, the opposition, has given one most important theme in today's debate: cultural blending. both our leader of opposition and deputy leader of opposition have keep emphasizing the importance of cultural blending, the efficiency of it, and how it will be a solution to not lose our national identity and also accept and support other nations' culture too. We believe that in this globalized society, interacting with other countries and importing and exporting not only materials, not only products, but also culture and arts is happening really common, and it is an inevitable thing. In this case, while in this inevitable situation, the government is only saying, with their ambiguous definition of national identity, they're just arguing that fusion will destroy our culture. However, the opposition would like to rebut and disagree to this point, saying and we have to tell you, this would bring good results rather than harming our own culture. They're arguing that they are saying the word subsidized, and they kept arguing that they are not banning foreign things, but they are just protecting our own culture. But we want to tell you that if we only support our national culture, then it will substantially the other countries' culture that was brought into Korean society will substantially decrease in size. And we want to tell you the fact that the word subsidized, the other team has kept mentioning, is a relative term. And you have to know the fact that if we support one thing, then it is natural that the other thing is going down. So we believe that the word subsidized cannot, no thank you, the other team has used as a good reason for this argument. And also, we do not see the reason why that only the arts and culture that portray our national identity should be supported. Because under their definition, they mentioned on the road selectively support, they said that we only have to support the art and culture that portray our national identity. And they also said it is a method of protecting our own culture. But as the opposition, we are not saying that we are not going to let our culture be destroyed and not support the culture. We are just saying that it is also important to import the important cultures of other countries and also support them. And not just accepting, we are just saying that we not just accepting by other countries, but also we know that we have to protect our country's cultures that are necessary. But our opposition is also emphasizing the fact that it is necessary to blend other countries' cultures too. And the other team has actually admitted that some of the fusions is necessary by saying that there could be partial success if we fuse other countries' culture into our nation. So they had just admitted the fact that in some cases, culture blending and culture fusion is necessary, and the opposition would like once again to emphasize the fact that we are not destroying our culture, but we are just blending and making a much more diverse culture, which our Deputy Prime Minister had stated well in their speech. Okay, about this diversity of art, our Deputy Leader of Opposition had mentioned the fact well by saying that by only supporting our country's culture, the diversity of art, the various possibilities of fusing into others' culture and mixing it and making a whole new culture, whole new art will be destroyed. Yes. So as our Prime Minister said, the culture, arts, these themes are always changing. And we have to, in this globalized society, we cannot just support and we cannot just look into our country's culture. We also have to look into other countries' culture, support them, and make our country, our culture, the better one by mixing them into one. Yes, sir.
Didn't you think about the possibilities of negative consequences of culture blending, which we mentioned in our arguments?
Well, the other team had kept mentioning about the negative factors of culture blending, but actually, honestly, our team didn't really get the exact or the logical any reason saying that our countries will be destroyed. Because on the example of kimchi, the other team has made another fallacy in this point. Both our team and the government has been mentioning about the example kimchi, but their team has just admitted the fact by saying that we are going to support kimchi and make it more suitable for their taste. He just admitted our point about the necessity of fusion. Moving on to my next point about the economical factors. As I had explained really much about the importance of fusion and acceptance of other countries' cultures, we believe that we will be not able to make a real development in our economy when we only support and only see our country's cultures. Because on this point of advertising, the other team had mentioned their Korean government has supported and made a documentary about kimchi, and that has been a good success. But yes, we believe this, and it'll be a good chance to advertise if government just supported. Government supported kimchi and made an advertisement make an advertisement for other things too. But wouldn't it be better if we make our cultures more approachable and change a little bit and make it more approachable to other countries? Because the advertisement may have some good effects, but to most of the people who are not used to our country's culture, it might be not hard to approach. So our opposition is suggesting the fact that we could make these things, our culture, more fit to other countries' culture, and that would have much more economical success. Because as I mentioned in my earlier speech, we cannot live without interactions, we cannot live without importing and exporting, not only materials, but our culture and arts to other countries. And we believe the fact that when we are afraid of these things, when you're just afraid that our culture might disappear, we don't believe that we could make any real development and also good economical success. Too much protection would have trouble in keeping our country, and it will also only keep our country in one spot. So thus, we believe, as our other speakers have mentioned, this would not bring any enhancement in our country's culture. We should not be afraid of doing this. We should not be afraid to make a better one, make a new one, and make our nice Korean culture spread to the whole world. So we believe that this policy should not be done. Thank you.
I thank the opposition whip. Now I'd like to invite the very last speaker from the opposition side, opposition reply.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. This is the reply speaker of the opposition. Ladies and gentlemen, by the end of my speech, I am sure that all of people in this hall would be convinced that the opposition take this debate home. Now, I'd first like to give a question to the proposition side, that why are they even participating in the English debate competition when they're so eager to protect our own culture? Language is included in the term of culture, but because it is a globalized society, we need people to lead our country to survive in the globalized society. And this logic can be perfectly put into today's motion and can be proven to you why this debate is taken home by the opposition. In order for our society to strengthen, and in a society where culture and art is for sale, we, the opposition, strongly believe that we need to blend the culture which is more adaptable and which has more competition in selling when we are selling it to the foreigners. And my second rebuttal would be that the DPM kindly gave the example of tourism. And this example clearly proves why we have won this debate. Because in order to make a better profit, when foreigners come into our country, we need to provide them with the safest, with the most comfortable condition so that they can enjoy the tourism. Let me give you an example of boards in our streets that we are very often faced. The names of places, the names of roads, and even the announcements that are given in the subway stations are given in Korean, in Chinese, and also in Japanese, and lastly by English. And from this example, we can easily come to the conclusion that blending the culture can actually maximize the profit that we can get in a globalized society. Now, and the last rebuttal to the opposition, to the proposition, and the reason why we definitely take this debate home is that the 2 points that were raised from the proposition are actually supporting our stance. Let me explain you why. As I am keep emphasizing and keep mentioning throughout the speech and throughout our team speech, in order to strengthen our national power, which was a point given by the proposition, and in order to make economical success, economical profit, we need to blend our culture, which means it is more approachable, more suitable for the foreigners. I am keep mentioning this, but less spicy kimchi or less other clothes or other languages can be suitable at this moment because we are in a globalized society. Ladies and gentlemen, also, the core of the motion is that why we should give selective support to the national identity, to the art and culture that portray the national identity. And we believe that this policy is not necessary in our society because, like the government themselves had admitted, various arts and cultures are recognized by the global world. Hanbok won the first place given to the most beautiful traditional clothes, and Taekwondo kimchi gained a lot of global popularity. And also, because they were changed slightly in order to fit the global taste, that was how it was a great success. So, ladies and gentlemen, I'd now like to summarize the points that was given by the opposition. First, that blending culture is needed for the enhancement and both for the protection of our culture. And second, that blending culture can work and not selectively subsidizing our culture would bring can work as the economical foundation in the globalization society. And last of all, because it keeps the diversity in the world of art and culture. Thank you.
I thank the opposition reply speaker. Now I'd like to invite the very last speaker of this debate, the government reply.
Thank you for calling me again to the podium. Because the reply of the opposition asked me about why we are debating in English, even we have to protect the culture, I like to answer this question. The reason why we are debating is even if we are debate, we don't forget all Korean. We don't forget Korean because we have foundation, because we have the foundation, the culture. That means that the opposition are giving not proper example by which is they try to prove, and also she said the service for the foreigners to giving the other Chinese, English, are the culture blending. However, this is not culture blending. Culture blending is one culture and other culture and another cultures are blending each other and take their own culture, their individual identity of their culture and making another culture. However, the service for given the foreigners is just service, not culture blending. So they are giving the second false example. And also, they are kept saying that the fusion is important. And we said, important. Yes, fusion is important. However, we said fusion is harmful when the foundation when the own culture are weak, have less power than the other foreign culture. Fusion is actually based on the own culture. What if the own culture are weak? That is not fusion. That is the conquer of which is done by the other foreign culture. This is not fusion. This is conquer. Like as already mentioned, almost the countries are facing the danger of the culture disappearing on their culture because the westernized culture. Because of the westernized. Only few, like American culture and your culture, are occupying all the others' culture. Almost every country have the less power on their culture. So it is important to remind that to become the meaning of the fusion, we have to focus. Firstly, we have to focus on the establishing the own culture, and the next step should be the getting the other culture. So let's remind what we said, because the reason why agree with this, the reason why government agree with this topic was first, it gives the competitive power by selectively support the cultures, arts that portray the identity. Like I said, as we show our culture, the image, the positive image we can get positive image from the global, and we can get competitive power. So, and the second one was it needs protection. Like I said over and over again, most important thing is the foundation, the stability of the own culture. Own culture should be protected. However, as the almost countries are weak of their culture, they need to protect. And the next step should be the culture blending. And third was economical benefits. By exporting or attracting the people from the other countries, we can get the beneficial, economically benefits. So for these three reasons, we strongly agree with this topic and strongly believe that we take this debate to our home. Thank you.
I thank both sides. You may cross the floor and shake hands, and please leave the room. Thank you. Can all the judges bring your ballot sheets, and we are going to leave this room and go to the first floor to make decision.